This is the story of Naoya Mukai, a high school student. Naoya has recently started dating Saki, his childhood friend. Saki has been a part of his life for a long time, and now their friendship has turned into something more serious, or at least as serious as a teenage relationship can be. One day, Nagisa Minace, a classmate of Naoya, decides to confess her feelings to him. Nagisa is deeply in love with Naoya and wants to tell him how she feels. At first, Naoya only thinks of Nagisa as a friend. He does not feel any romantic connection with her. However, after a period of overthinking everything, he comes to the genius conclusion to accept her feelings. He agrees to be her boyfriend too. Naoya doesn't stop there. He decides he wants both Saki and Nagisa to be his girlfriends at the same time. To make things even more awkward, both Saki and Nagisa agree to move in with him, because Naoya lives alone because his parents work in another place. But before all this, Naoya gets thrilled when Saki, the love of his childhood, finally agrees to be his girlfriend. His happiness is almost overwhelming, as if he has won the lottery of teenage romance. Saki tells him that she is going to her club. She jokingly asks him not to cheat on her while she is away. Naoya, ever the dramatic lover, hugs her tightly and says he would never do such a thing because he loves her too much. Saki, who is clearly embarrassed by this over-the-top display, awkwardly plays along, probably wondering what she just signed up for. Later, Naoya is standing on the school roof when a girl suddenly approaches him. She introduces herself as Nagisa and confesses that she is in love with him, leaving Naoya completely speechless. Nagisa then asks him what he thinks of her appearance. Naoya, who has no filter or sense of subtlety, tells her that she is pretty. Nagisa lights up with happiness. She explains that she has been working hard for a whole year to improve every part of herself. She even focused on cooking, believing that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Then, without missing a beat, she asks Naoya to go out with her. Naoya rejects her instantly, saying he loves his girlfriend too much to cheat on her. Nagisa, instead of feeling crushed like a normal person, boldly declares that she won't give up. Naoya, for reasons that can only be described as questionable, suddenly finds himself captivated by her determination. He decides on the spot that he wants Nagisa in his life. Without much thought, he concludes that the best solution is to date both girls at the same time. Nagisa, to her credit, immediately rejects this ridiculous idea. But Naoya, the human embodiment of persistence, convinces her by promising that he will ask Saki for permission. Nagisa somehow agrees to this absurd plan, and Naoya sets out on his mission to turn his life into a romantic comedy disaster. Naoya introduces Saki and Nagisa to each other. Saki, clearly trying to be polite, mentions that Nagisa is very pretty. She even asks Nagisa to be her friend, which seems like a strange choice considering the situation. They spend some time doing various activities together before sitting down to eat the food Nagisa prepared. During the meal, Naoya decides it is the perfect time to drop his ridiculous plan. He tells Saki about his idea to date both of them. Saki immediately rejects it in the most effective way possible by punching him square in the jaw. She then turns to Nagisa, asking how she could agree to something so absurd. Nagisa, with the emotional intensity of a soap opera character, explains that this is her only chance to date Naoya. She even asks Saki to reconsider. Saki almost gives in because Nagisa is just too sweet and innocent, but then she snaps back to reality. She firmly says that this kind of relationship is abnormal. Nagisa, not one to give up easily, offers to cook for Naoya every day if Saki agrees. Naoya, ever the drama king, promises that he will do whatever it takes to make both of them happy. Faced with this persistence, Saki reluctantly agrees. Naoya then decides they should all live together to get to know each other better. After Naoya somehow convinces his parents to allow this nonsense, they all move into his house. They decide on some household duties. Naoya takes responsibility for cleaning and Nagisa's cooking, while Saki declares that housework is not her thing and avoids any chores altogether. Clearly, she plans to contribute to this arrangement by doing absolutely nothing. Later, when Saki is bathing, Naoya offers to wash her back. Saki, horrified by his lack of boundaries, immediately tells him to leave. Just then, Nagisa enters the bathroom. Saki notices Nagisa's figure and becomes jealous of her melons, clearly feeling insecure about her own. Nagisa, ever the cheerful one, assures Saki that she will interfere and they can do whatever they want. Saki, frustrated, blurts out that they haven't even kissed yet, which makes Nagisa oddly happy for some reason. Saki asks Naoya what his plans are with Nagisa, clearly nervous about how far he might want to go. Naoya, in his usual overly honest and awkward way, says he would like for the three of them to share small, meaningful moments together. He quickly adds that his priority is improving his relationship with them and promises he won't try anything perverted. Instead of being relieved, Saki looks disappointed. Naoya, oblivious as always, notices her reaction, but Saki denies it. In her mind, Saki feels conflicted. Living in this situation is becoming harder for her. Nagisa is so cute that Saki worries Naoya might eventually be seduced by her sweetness. She asks Nagisa if she isn't uncomfortable with what Naoya just said, hoping for some solidarity. Nagisa, showing her dedication to this ridiculous arrangement, says she would do anything if it makes Naoya happy. Seki feels even more uneasy as Nagisa's cheerful devotion seems almost impossible to compete with. When they head to the room, both Saki and Nagisa are surprised to see that Naoya has prepared 3 fuvums arranged side by side. He explains that this setup will help them bond and improve their relationship. Saki, skeptical of his intentions, accuses him of planning to try something with Nagisa once she falls asleep. Naoya denies this, but Saki doesn't believe him. She even admits that if she were in his position, she would definitely try something, making her frustrations very clear. Naoya, trying to be as neutral as possible, lies down between them. Saki decides to stay awake to keep an eye on him, determined to prevent anything suspicious. Naoya thanks both of them for putting up with his selfish behavior, but since Saki doesn't respond, he and Nagisa assume she has fallen asleep. Nagisa takes this as an opportunity to get closer to Naoya. She quietly asks him if she can move closer, and Naoya, being himself, says yes without hesitation. He takes her hands and tells her that he wants to understand her better. Saki, lying awake and paranoid, convinces herself that Naoya and Nagisa are doing something inappropriate. She immediately interrupts them, only to see that they are simply holding hands. Feeling both embarrassed and left out, Saki decides she also wants to sleep on the same futon as Naoya. This sudden declaration makes Naoya think that Seki must be feeling lonely. The next morning, Nagisa wakes up early and starts preparing breakfast. As she works, she reflects on how strange their relationship is. She feels happy to be Naoya's girlfriend, but also knows deep down that this arrangement can't last forever. She believes that when the time comes, she will be the one to leave first. Nagisa is convinced that Naoya won't break up with Saki, no matter what happens. Curious about Saki and Naoya's interests, Nagisa decides to check their phones to learn more about them. She investigates Saki's search history, expecting to find something insightful or meaningful. Instead, she finds searches related to doing it for the first time, which leaves her both surprised and amused. Naoya wakes up and notices what Nagisa is doing. She quickly explains that she just wants to know more about them. When Saki wakes up, Naoya tells her what Nagisa was doing. Saki instantly assumes that they saw her embarrassing search history. Horrified, she scolds Naoya in a way that probably makes him regret mentioning it. Nagisa apologizes to Naoya afterward, feeling bad about what happened. Naoya brushes it off, saying that Nagisa has already sacrificed so much for him. He feels that dealing with small misunderstandings like this is the least he can do for her. The 3 of them then sit down to have breakfast together. During the meal, Nagisa reveals that she is in the same class as Naoya and Saki. However, she has been absent from school because she was attending cooking classes. She explains that she started the classes to impress Naoya. Naoya and Saki decide to help Nagisa catch up on her homework since she has missed so much school. Everything goes smoothly until they get to math. Nagisa struggles to understand anything and instead of asking for help, runs off to the bathroom. She tries to look up the answers online, hoping to avoid looking stupid in front of Naoya. Despite her efforts, the math still doesn't make sense to her. She comes back even more confused, then excuses herself again, repeating the process without making any progress. The next day, Seki points out that they need to keep their strange relationship a secret. She explains that if anyone finds out, it will ruin their reputations. During class, Nagisa feels lonely. Her classmates don't seem to recognize her and wonder who she is. Naoya notices her sad expression and decides to act like he's introducing himself to her for the first time, trying to ease her loneliness. However, Naoya's overactive sense of justice kicks in, and he starts feeling bad about keeping their relationship hidden. He impulsively decides to reveal their secret to everyone. Saki, horrified by his lack of common sense, immediately stops him and drags him away to scold him for his reckless behavior. Nagisa, observing all of this, says she expected something like this to happen. However, she reassures them that it doesn't bother her. Later, she hands them their lunches, explaining that she plans to eat in the bathroom so that no one notices they all have the same food. This statement hits Naoya and Saki hard. The thought of Nagisa eating alone in the bathroom out of embarrassment moves them to tears. Saki insists how it's not right to treat Nagisa like a stranger at school, even if they are trying to keep their two-timing relationship a secret. Naoya agrees and suggests that they eat their lunch quietly to avoid drawing attention. Saki emphasizes the need to stay discreet, reminding everyone to keep a low profile. Nagisa, however, tells them they don't need to go to so much trouble for her. She insists that she is already happy just being allowed to date Naoya alongside Saki. She feels that trying to act like friends in public might be too selfish. Saki, being her usual overenthusiastic self, asks if it really would be selfish, and her voice carries a little too far. Students below the roof hear Saki's words and immediately turn their heads toward the trio's hiding spot. The group freezes, startled by the sudden attention. Saki leans toward Nagisa and whispers, asking if she made the lunchboxes because she wanted to eat together. Before Nagisa can respond, Naoya loudly declares that Nagisa is too modest, earning him a slap from Saki for being so noisy. Nagisa admits that she would love to eat lunch together at school. Saki and Naoya enthusiastically agree but end up speaking too loudly again, drawing even more attention. A teacher hears the commotion and asks if anyone is on the roof, forcing the trio to flee. After escaping, Nagisa asks Saki if she knows of a quieter spot in the school where they could eat together without being disturbed. Nagisa adds that she used to eat alone back in middle school. She suggests a spot in the toilets, but when they arrive, the place is filthy and reeks of an unbearable stench. Saki immediately refuses, saying there's no way she could eat in such a disgusting place. Nagisa explains that the toilets behind the school are rarely cleaned, so they are usually deserted during lunch. However, the overpowering smell makes it impossible for Saki to consider staying there. The trio tries a different location near the toilets, but the smell lingers and the attempt is a failure. Naoya asks if there's anywhere without such a strong odor. Nagisa takes them to the toilets at the clubhouse, which are cleaner and less smelly, but Saki still refuses, declaring that it's not suitable for eating. The group continues brainstorming, searching for a better spot. In the middle of their frustration, Naoya suggests the PE warehouse as a potential hiding place. Nagisa points out that people might go there and insists that the bathroom is still the best option. Her obsession with bathrooms makes Saki and Naoya beg her to stop bringing it up. Nagisa, however, stubbornly explains that bathrooms are the perfect place to hide and avoid judgment for their selfish relationship. Naoya, ever supportive, reassures Nagisa that he doesn't care if she is selfish. They eventually settle on the gym warehouse because it's closed and private. Seki finds a small window they can crawl through, so they climb inside to enjoy their food in peace. While they eat, Nagisa asks Naoya if he wants her to do anything for him. She even offers to work to earn money if that's what he needs. Saki, who is clearly not on the same page, immediately assumes Nagisa is thinking of something inappropriate. She comments that Nagisa must really like Naoya to offer to do anything. Nagisa, without hesitation, points out that Saki also does plenty of things for Naoya. Saki, caught off guard, starts questioning herself. She wonders what she has actually done for Naoya. After a brief moment of self-reflection, she realizes that she hasn't really done anything special for him. Feeling insecure, Saki asks Naoya what he wants her to do when they get home. Instead of making any demands, Naoya kindly offers to buy her a cake if she wants one. Saki happily accepts but quickly realizes she has, once again, made Naoya do all the work. Saki decides to do something special for Naoya. She goes shopping, determined to make something to impress him. But instead of real ingredients, she ends up buying a pack of gummies. She tells herself she'll make curry, but when she tries, she burns herself and ruins the attempt. Feeling frustrated and completely out of her depths, Seki comes to an outrageous conclusion. The only thing she can do for Naoya is to have wild intercourse with him. With this dramatic decision, she goes to her room and awkwardly prepares herself, placing her hands on her small chest and gathering her courage. However, Naoya immediately refuses her offer, reminding her that they both promised not to do anything inappropriate. Saki, humiliated and overthinking the situation, convinces herself that Naoya rejected her because her chest is small and that he prefers Nagisa's figure. In a fit of insecurity, she runs out of the house, leaving a note saying she's going back to her home, which conveniently happens to be next door since they're neighbors. Naoya tells Nagisa what happened, which makes her blush as she realizes they are now alone together. Nagisa starts imagining what it might mean, but Naoya quickly states that he plans to bring Saki back. The next morning, he stands on the balcony and calls out to her, holding a huge letter where he has written all his feelings for her. Saki, unimpressed by this theatrical gesture, throws the letter back at him. Undeterred, Naoya reads it aloud, making the whole situation even more dramatic and ridiculous. In the days that follow, Naoya tries everything he can to get Saki to forgive him. He spends all his energy doing things for her, but she stubbornly refuses to accept his efforts. Nagisa notices that Naoya hasn't slept for 3 days because of his determination. She asks him to take a break and tells him that she will make him happy even if Saki isn't in their lives. Naoya, however, rejects this idea, saying he can't give up on either of them. Determined to help Naoya get Saki back, Nagisa takes things to an absurd level. She grabs his hand and places it on her juicy melons where Saki can see. At that exact moment, Saki jumps down from the balcony, clearly furious. Nagisa calmly tells Saki that now they can have a proper conversation. Naoya, trying to make sense of the chaos, asks Saki why she left the house. Saki hesitates before admitting that she feels Nagisa is better than her. She points out how much effort Nagisa puts into their relationship and how skilled she is, especially at cooking. Saki feels inadequate in comparison. She laments that she can't do anything right, and even her melons are not melons but little cherries as compared to the huge assets of Nagisa. Noe looks stunned, unsure how to respond, while Nagisa tries to hide a soft chuckle. Noe quickly shifts the conversation, saying that such comparisons don't matter and reassuring Saki. However, Saki cuts him off, declaring that he will eventually choose Nagisa over her. Overwhelmed by her emotions, she turns to run away, but Noe grabs her hand to stop her. He tries to convince her that she's wrong, but Saki doesn't want to hear it and demands to be let go. Noe insists that just being with her makes him happy. Saki, frustrated by his answer, yells at him and punches him as hard as she can. Noe goes flying and lands on the ground dazed. Nagisa, watching the scene, seems puzzled by the sudden outburst, while Saki stands there breathing heavily. Through her anger and tears, Saki shouts that she also wants to do something meaningful for Noe. She remembers all the times she asked him if there was anything she could do for him. Each time, Noe would say no and instead ask if there was something he could do for her. She recalls moments when she admitted she couldn't even manage basic chores, but Noe would brush it off, telling her to rest. He would take care of everything, from drawing her bath to making her tea. Now, feeling overwhelmed and helpless, Saki breaks down completely. She grabs Noe by his shirt and shakes him, demanding to know why he never asked her for anything. Nagisa, ever honest, confirms this observation, leaving Noe awkwardly realizing how much he has been doing on his own. Noe quickly apologizes, realizing how much his actions have affected Saki. Both Saki and Nagisa tell him that he doesn't need to do everything on his own. They remind him that as his girlfriends, they also want to take care of him. Isn't that what it means to be in a relationship? They ask, emphasizing the importance of sharing responsibilities and supporting each other. Noe explains his reasoning. He admits that he feels he can't truly be happy unless both Saki and Nagisa are happy. He reminds them that he was the one who pushed for this complicated relationship, so he feels responsible for keeping it balanced. In a dramatic display of guilt, Noe kneels before them and tells them to punch him as punishment for his stubbornness. Saki, without hesitation, takes him up on the offer and punches him hard. Nagisa, shocked at first, watches as Saki explains that this is the first time Noe has actually asked her to do something, so she gladly did it. Nagisa excitedly praises her for taking action. Noe, now sporting a dazed expression, gets up and shakes his head to regain his focus. He tells Saki that he loves this fiery side of her. He explains that this boldness is one of the reasons he always wants to stay by her side. He stands up and declares there are many things he wants her to do for him. First, he wants to see her smile more often, which excites her. Then he adds that he loves seeing her angry face too. He says he wants to eat the food she makes, even if it's not perfect. Saki, showing her usual mix of humor and frustration, says she'll make burnt food just for him. Noe enthusiastically adds that he wants to see her in a swimsuit, which makes Saki excitedly agree. But then, in a moment of overexcitement, he blurts out something about doing a threesome someday. Both Saki and Nagisa turn bright red, shocked by his boldness. Saki quickly tells him he's gone too far, leaving Noe flustered as he gathers himself. Finally, Noe softens his tone and says the most important thing he wants is for all of them to continue living together happily. Later, Nagisa prepares dinner to celebrate Saki's return. Meanwhile, Noe finally takes a much-needed rest after not sleeping for 3 days. Nagisa announces that dinner is ready and both the girls sit to eat. Nagisa proudly mentions how much effort she put into cooking it. The meal looks impressive and Saki acknowledges the effort, though her mind drifts to Noe. Nagisa tells Saki how Noe stayed up for 3 nights straight for her. This leaves Saki feeling conflicted about his intense dedication to making everyone happy. The two start eating and the food is a hit. Nagisa beams with pride as Saki enjoys the meal. She takes the opportunity to tell Saki that she admires her as a rival and hopes they can become closer friends. Saki, still hesitant, agrees but is surprised by Nagisa's infectious enthusiasm. Her eagerness makes Saki feel both flattered and slightly overwhelmed. Nagisa suggests that gaming could be a fun way for them to bond. Saki admits that she used to play but warns that she's not very good at it. Nagisa encourages her anyway, excited to share the experience. Despite claiming to have practiced the game for over 1,000 hours, Nagisa is hilariously bad at it. Saki, who is clearly better, enjoys showing off her skills and admits it's fun to play with Nagisa because she can win so easily. Saki feels satisfied after realizing she has finally found something she's better at than Nagisa. Winning the game gives her a small sense of victory, and she makes sure to enjoy the moment. Noe wakes up and is thrilled to see Saki and Nagisa getting along so well. Nagisa, ever the perfectionist, says she'll watch gameplay videos to improve. She puts on a streamer named Mirika, hoping to learn. Saki immediately expresses her dislike for Mirika, accusing her of only getting views because of her assets and pointing out that she's terrible at the game. However, Naoya notices something unusual. In one of Mirika's video thumbnails, he spots a school uniform that looks like the one from their school. This makes him suspect that Mirika might be a student there. The next day, Saki and Naoya walk to school together, enjoying their usual routine. During the lunch break, they join Nagisa at their secret spot to share a meal. Saki is particularly excited about today's lunch, finding the food to be delicious. She happily digs in, clearly enjoying herself. Midway through, Saki brings up the idea of playing the video game with Nagisa again when they return home. Nagisa agrees but mentions that there's something else she wants to do as well, practice by watching gameplay videos. Nagisa takes out her phone to search for gameplay videos and immediately notices something strange. The thumbnail of a video they had seen before has changed. She seems surprised and points it out to Saki, explaining that the thumbnail now features Mirika, the streamer whose uniform they recognized earlier, but the title of the video remains the same. Curious, Nagisa shows the thumbnail to Naoya, who is calmly enjoying his food without paying much attention. Saki looks over and quickly deduces that if Mirika has updated her thumbnail, it must mean she's actively managing her content and possibly attends their school, given the uniform connection. Naoya agrees with her reasoning, but seems less bothered by the discovery. Saki, on the other hand, can't help but mock Mirika's carelessness. She points out that if Mirika is trying to keep her identity a secret, she should be more cautious like them. Saki explains that they are hiding in the PE warehouse because it is always locked. She confidently adds that she locked the windows herself, which was the only way in or out. Just as she finishes her explanation, a girl named Rika suddenly climbs through the very window Saki claims to have secured. Saki yells in frustration, realizing she must have forgotten to lock the window. She quickly urges the group to come up with a plan to handle the situation, but before they can think of anything, Rika interrupts. Still half in the window, Rika takes one look at the trio and immediately jumps to conclusions. She deduces that two girls and one boy hiding in a PE warehouse can only mean one thing: they must be doing something inappropriate. Saki, trying to control the situation, insists that nothing of the sort is happening. Rika, unconvinced, points out how sketchy the whole setup looks. Naoya, in his usual overenthusiastic way, tries to explain the situation. He blurts out that while he is two-timing, nothing perverted has happened, let alone anything as extreme as a threesome. Saki, already at her limit, punches Naoya square in the face for his idiocy. He goes flying, once again proving that his loud mouth is his biggest weakness. Rika, still piecing things together, reflects on the two-timing comment. She climbs fully into the warehouse and asks if the three of them are actually dating each other. The trio instantly realizes they have messed up. Naoya, always ready to make a bad situation worse, loudly declares that they've been caught. Saki, exasperated, tells him to at least try to hide the truth instead of yelling out. Rika looks at them with a mix of amusement and disgust, declaring that they are all a bunch of weirdos. Saki, desperate to contain the situation, pleads with Rika to keep their relationship a secret. Rika, instead of being shocked, starts teasing them about their unusual arrangement. To ensure Rika keeps their secret, Naoya offers her 200,000 yen, hoping a bribe will do the trick. Rika, unimpressed, laughs at the offer, casually revealing that she earns far more than that in a single month. Naoya, shocked and curious, questions how a high school student could make that kind of money. In typical Naoya fashion, he escalates things unnecessarily. He approaches her and grabs her legs, speculating that she must be involved in indecent activities. Rika, stunned by his accusation, freezes as Naoya rambles on. He points out that her big melons and flirtatious appearance could attract dangerous men who might exploit her. He paints a ridiculous and dramatic scenario, warning her that she could be deceived, blackmailed, and turned into a notorious sexy bombshell. Rika, baffled by the wild assumptions, shouts in frustration, denying that she would ever do such things. Naoya, completely unfazed by her outrage, presses her further, asking how she earns so much money if not through questionable means. Before Rika can respond, Nagisa interrupts, calmly asking if Rika is actually Mirika, the Matuber. The question hits Rika like a bolt of lightning. Sweat starts dripping down her face as she listens in disbelief. Saki, joining in, says that Rika does resemble Mirika. Rika, trembling and panicking, tries to deny everything, awkwardly claiming she has no idea what they are talking about. Nagisa, however, has evidence. She pulls out a screenshot of the thumbnail from Mirika's video, which she had saved before the video was deleted. Rika's face twists in horror as she sees it. She shouts in disbelief, demanding to know how Nagisa got the screenshot after she had erased the video. Her reaction leaves no doubt she is Mirika, the popular Matuber. The trio exchanges knowing looks, realizing they've uncovered her secret. Saki, never one to hold back, starts teasing Rika about her identity. Rika promises to keep quiet if they don't make a big deal out of it. Naoya, in his usual dramatic way, declares that even if Rika exposes their relationship, he'll openly admit everything and defend their choices. This unexpected honesty surprises Rika, who concludes that despite their strange situation, Naoya, Saki, and Nagisa are actually good people. And because of all this, Rika declares that she will become Naoya's third girlfriend. Her confidence catches everyone off guard, but Nagisa quickly questions her motives. Nagisa asks if Rika is worried about being doxxed or stalked now that her identity as a MTuber is public, and if that's why she wants a boyfriend to protect her. Rika, clearly flustered, denies it, but her reaction only makes it more obvious. Both Saki and Nagisa exchange knowing looks, finding Rika's behavior far too suspicious to believe. Rika insists that she would never rely on others for help. She sits down and casually states that now is simply the right time for her to get a boyfriend. Saki finds this reasoning incredibly lame and doesn't hold back in saying so. Naoya, ever the overly trusting fool, steps in to defend Rika, saying that if Rika says it isn't true, then it must not be. Saki quickly shuts him down, pointing out that he's being too naive as usual. Rika, refusing to back down, tries a different tactic. She asks Naoya if he's happy and begins trying to seduce him. She confidently describes her long legs, glamorous figure, and bright, clear eyes framed by long lashes. She boasts that there aren't many girls as beautiful as her and asks Naoya if he agrees. Naoya, being blunt and honest as always, admits that she has a point. He tells her that he finds her very cute, which makes Rika feel victorious for a moment. However, before she can celebrate, Naoya continues. He casually mentions that he's seen her videos and thought she was lovely in them. He adds that being her boyfriend would probably feel like a dream come true. Then, with zero hesitation, he apologizes once again. Rika is left completely stunned. Saki, clearly pleased with his response, hugs him and praises his decisiveness. Meanwhile, Rika, still processing the rejection, points at Naoya in disbelief, demanding to know if he actually turned her down. Naoya bows before her and apologizes sincerely. He assures her that if all she wants is a boyfriend, she will have no trouble finding one because of how charming and popular she is. Rika, still not ready to accept defeat, reminds him that she is not only super cute and fashionable, but also a successful MTuber. She argues that she is clearly superior to Saki and Nagisa. Naoya, ever logical, tells her that those qualities aren't everything when it comes to dating. Rika, frustrated, accuses him of being too serious for someone who's already too timing. She commands to know what his problem is. Naoya explains that if he were to date every cute girl he met, there would be no end to it. He firmly states that his priority is making Saki and Nagisa happy right now. Saki and Nagisa both blush at his words, feeling flattered. Rika, on the other hand, is stunned by his sincerity. She calls him a fool and tries to argue further, but Naoya apologizes again, standing by his decision. Unable to handle the rejection, Rika dramatically grabs her jacket and throws it into the air, revealing her figure. She declares her G-cup size and points out all the effort she puts into staying fashionable and slim. Saki counts from A to G, while Nagisa silently admits defeat, feeling overshadowed. Rika, now desperate, proposes that Naoya might get the chance to fondle her if he dates her. Naoya, staying calm, acknowledges the possibility but adds that he would only want to touch someone he genuinely likes. Rika, demoralized by his repeated rejections, becomes visibly upset. In a final act of defeat, Rika falls to her knees, calling herself pathetic for being unable to win against someone like Naoya. To make matters worse for her, Naoya, Saki, and Nagisa completely ignore her and start discussing what to have for dinner. During this conversation, Rika realizes they all live together, which gives her a new idea. She boldly offers to live with them too and even promises to pay all the bills. Naoya, maintaining his sense of order in the chaos, refuses her offer. He explains that people who are not in a relationship cannot live together. This response leaves Rika with no choice but to storm off, frustrated and defeated. When they return from school the next day, Naoya, Saki, and Nagisa are shocked to find that Rika has pitched a tent in their backyard. Rika confidently announces her decision to live there. She justifies this by pointing out that technically she isn't living under the same roof as them, so it's not a problem. She boldly declares her intention to make Naoya fall in love with her, much to everyone's annoyance. Naoya tries to reason with her, telling her it will get too cold at night. However, Rika dismisses his concerns, insisting that she doesn't care and is determined to stay. When Naoya suggests she return to her house, Rika refuses and begins ordering supplies online to survive the cold. However, her large purchase won't be delivered until morning, leaving her unprepared for the night. Not one to miss an opportunity, Rika decides to start streaming from her tent. She removes her jacket, explaining that her views depend on showing her cleavage. Naoya, baffled by her choices, asks why she brought such light clothing to the yard. Rika casually states that her job demands it. She then starts exercising to keep warm, refusing to admit she's uncomfortable. By morning, her packages arrive, but after all the exercising, she smells terrible. Desperate for a solution, she searches the internet and decides to bathe outdoors in a bikini. Seeing her persistence, Naoya, Saki, and Nagisa conclude that Rika has no intention of leaving anytime soon. This realization leads Nagisa to suggest they need to come up with a plan to protect themselves from Rika's antics. Saki hatches a ridiculous idea. They should wear swimsuits and join Naoya while he's bathing to distract him, so he won't think about Rika. Nagisa agrees to the plan and approaches Naoya while he's bathing. However, in a classic moment of clumsiness, she slips and accidentally puts her juicy melons in his face. Nagisa apologizes for the awkward accident but admits she would be happy if Naoya shows some gratitude for it. Saki, feeling competitive, decides to try the same thing. However, hers are not melons but cherries and she can't manage to recreate the scene. Her frustration grows, but she refuses to give up. At that moment, Saki accidentally drops her bra, creating an awkward situation where Naoya can see her. Instead of feeling embarrassed, Saki boldly claims that this is fine because now Naoya will surely become obsessed with her. Nagisa, watching this play out, decides to take a different approach. She puts on her swimsuit despite feeling shy and asks Naoya if he will look at her as well. Naoya, trying to keep up with the situation, looks at both of them. Nagisa, flustered by his attention, immediately calls him a pervert. Episode 6. The next day, Rika continues her antics by cooking in the backyard. The trio watches her from inside the house, observing how she confidently makes lunch right outside their window. Nagisa comments that Rika seems to be adjusting well to living in a tent, while Saki remarks on her determination. Naoya, clearly annoyed, decides he needs to take action and heads outside. Naoya approaches Rika and tries to reason with her. She offers him some of the meat she's grilling, but he ignores it and tells her to go home. Rika refuses, reminding him that she already said she won't leave until he falls for her. Naoya explains again that he is already in a two-timing relationship and cannot add a third girlfriend. He insists it wouldn't be proper. Saki, ever the realist, interjects from the background, pointing out that two-timing isn't exactly proper either. Naoya tries to make Rika understand that he can't return her feelings and asks her to take down her tent. Rika refuses, saying her pride is at stake, and she won't leave just because he rejected her. She picks up a piece of burning charcoal from her grill and threatens to throw it at him if it comes near her tent. Nagisa, sensing the situation escalating, advises Naoya to retreat for now. Later, Rika relaxes in her tent, sipping tea and watching the trio through the window. Inside the house, Naoya, Saki, and Nagisa sit around a table, also drinking tea. Saki, clearly frustrated, comments on Rika's incredible stubbornness. Naoya tries to reassure them, saying he will handle it and make Rika leave soon. Nagisa, however, suggests that they shouldn't rush things. She explains that forcing Rika to leave might make things worse and that they need to take their time to convince her properly. Saki agrees, adding that they don't know what Rika might do if they approach her carelessly. Nagisa agrees, emphasizing that dealing with Rika requires caution. Saki and Nagisa turn to Naoya and ask if he understands the importance of being careful. Naoya, looking slightly defeated, nods in agreement, but he can't stop watching Rika through the window. He notices her behavior seems a little rushed, almost like she's in a hurry. Nagisa observes the same thing and comments that Rika seems to be going somewhere. Saki, ever blunt, remarks that it looks like Rika needs to use the toilet. She points out that there's a convenience store nearby if that's the case. Naoya suddenly stands up, deciding this is the perfect opportunity. He grabs his phone and starts calling a disposal service. He explains to them that there's camping gear, a sleeping bag, and other materials to be picked up right away. Nagisa, startled, asks him what he is doing. Saki, now frustrated, reminds him that they just talked about not forcing Rika to leave. Naoya ignores them and continues giving the address until Saki snatches his phone out of his hand. She tells him that he's taking things too far. Naoya looks surprised and asks why she stopped him. He accuses her of secretly being okay with free timing. Saki, offended, firmly denies it but refuses to return his phone. Nagisa steps in and tells Naoya to calm down, asking why he is acting so rashly all of a sudden. Naoya takes a deep breath, closes his eyes, and explains his reasoning. He reminds them that he is currently in a two-timing relationship, which they both know. Saki and Nagisa nod, waiting for him to explain further. Naoya then admits that if he spends more time with Rika, there's a chance he might fall for her too. Saki, taken aback, points out that Naoya has already rejected Rika when she asked him to become her boyfriend. She seems confused about why he is suddenly so concerned. Naoya, feeling conflicted, admits that his concerns may just be the ramblings of a two-timing guy, but he can't help himself. Saki, unimpressed with his self-pity, questions why he is so insecure. Naoya tries to explain, saying that if the roles were reversed, he would feel anxious too. He points out that if their boyfriend were spending time with someone like Rika, they would probably worry about him falling for her. Nagisa, realizing his point, thinks about it and says that, from a general perspective, there is a high chance Naoya could end up in a three-timing situation. She estimates it at 80%, which causes Naoya to panic even more. He insists they need to act quickly and asks Saki to give him back his phone so he can get rid of Rika's tent. Saki, unwilling to let him spiral further, stops him by pressing her foot on his head, reminding him that general statistics don't apply here. Nagisa steps in, saying that even though she has only lived with Naoya for a short time, she has seen how hard he tries and how serious he is about their relationship. Saki agrees, asking Naoya if he is even planning to fall in love with Rika. Naoya firmly denies it, but adds that he isn't confident in his ability to avoid it entirely. This statement stuns both girls. Saki steps closer, grabs his hand, and delivers a sharp jab, demanding to know what he means by that. Naoya yells in pain but tries to explain. He says that even though he decided to cherish Saki, he still ended up falling for Nagisa too. He calls himself weak-willed and says he has to learn from that experience to avoid making the same mistake. Naoya goes on to acknowledge that Rika is a cute and determined girl. He admires the effort she puts into her videos and how successful she has become because of her hard work. He admits it's pathetic, but he fears that if Rika stays close to him, he might start noticing her charm even more and could fall for her too. However, Naoya emphasizes that his goal is clear. He only wants to love Saki and Nagisa. He declares that even if Rika ends up resenting him, his main focus is to make Saki and Nagisa happy. Hearing this, Saki and Nagisa finally agree to help him. They begin getting rid of Rika's belongings before she can return. Naoya decides to distract Rika so she doesn't notice what they are doing. However, despite their efforts, Rika comes back sooner than expected. She arrives just as Saki and Nagisa are loading her things onto a truck. Rika tries to stop Saki and Nagisa from taking her belongings, but Naoya quickly steps in and holds her back. Rika, frustrated, shouts that Naoya is a groper, hoping to make him let go. Naoya, unfazed by her accusation, calmly continues holding her. Rika shifts her strategy, complaining that everything being taken away cost her a lot of money. She demands 1,000,000 yen in compensation. Naoya, being overly earnest as usual, promises to pay her back even if it means working part-time to cover the costs. Once the truck carrying Rika's things leaves, Naoya hands her a note. The note tells Rika to stay away from him while he is paying her back. He explains that he cannot go out with her because it would be unfair to Saki and Nagisa. Hearing this, Rika unexpectedly starts to feel something for Naoya. His honesty and sense of responsibility seem to affect her deeply. She tears up the note, telling him that she will return home once her father comes to pick her up. Naoya offers to take her home himself, but Rika insists on waiting at his house. Just then, Rika's father arrives. He reveals that he has discovered her streaming channel and angrily declares that he is ashamed of her for showing her cleavage in her videos. He tries to delete the channel, causing a tense confrontation. Naoya steps in to defend Rika, telling her father that she puts a lot of effort into her videos and entertains many people through her work. He adds that he will protect Rika from unfair judgment. Rika is moved by his words. She blushes, clearly affected by his support, and after a moment of reflection, she decides to return to her house, saying that she needs time to think about everything. Nagisa and Saki notice her expression and are immediately shocked. They realize that Rika has fallen in love with Naoya. This discovery leaves them worried, and they talk about what they should do. They try to come up with a plan to deal with it, but neither of them can think of anything useful. Their brainstorming session leads to absolutely no progress, leaving them stuck and frustrated. Sometime later, Saki decides to go back home to grab some clothes. While there, her mother casually asks if she has already been intimate with Naoya. The question is so blunt that it leaves Saki flustered and defensive. It points out that if he hasn't tried anything despite living with someone as beautiful as Saki, it must mean he is too rational. This comment leaves Saki feeling insecure. She begins to wonder if Naoya's rationality will always stop him from wanting to be close to her. The thought bothers her so much that she decides to take action. She comes up with a bold plan to seduce Naoya. The next day, Nagisa notices that Saki is in an unusually good mood. Curious, she asks Saki why she seems so warm the previous day. Her curiosity grows, so she asks Naoya if something happened. Naoya, as honest as ever, tells her that nothing inappropriate occurred, but he mentions that Seki looked very cute in the costume. Hearing this, Nagisa feels a mix of competitiveness and inspiration. Determined not to be out, she asks Naoya to pet her head, which he does, leaving her completely delighted. During dinner, Nagisa becomes so caught up in her happiness expecting it. The next day, Rika waits for Naoya outside his classroom. Other figure, particularly her juicy melons. Rika stands. She wonders how she could fall in love and shifts the conversation. She casually points out that Rika has clearly fallen in love with Naoya. Rika, flustered and defensive, denies it, but Seki isn't fooled. Saki confidently tells Rika that her feelings are obvious. Naoya steps out of the classroom at that moment, a two-timing guy. He admits he has caused her a lot of embarrassment and wants to make amends. Before Rika can respond, Naoya throws his jacket into the air, yanks off his tie, and unbuttons his shirt. He declares that after Rika shows up at Naoya's class, making her presence impossible to ignore. Saki immediately confronts her, telling her to stay away from Naoya, but Rika completely ignores her. Everyone in the class begins watching the unfolding drama. Rika boldly grabs Naoya by the arm and claims they are in a serious relationship, leaving everyone stunned. She quickly follows up by saying she's joking, but then in typical Rika fashion, she rubs her chest against him, making the situation even more awkward. Saki, not one to stand by quietly, finally snaps. She storms over and grabs Rika by the shoulders, forcefully ordering her to stop bothering Naoya. Determined to protect him from Rika's antics, Saki asks Naoya to stay by her side for the rest of the school day to ensure Rika doesn't try anything else. Naoya, seeing her intensity, misunderstands the situation entirely. He assumes Saki must be feeling lonely and hugs her to comfort her. This act of affection only adds fuel to the fire, making Rika furious. Feeling ignored and frustrated, Rika storms out of the classroom, angrily declaring that she will be back. Naoya keeps holding Saki even after classes begin. Instead of letting her sit at her desk, he places her on his lap, insisting to the teacher that this is necessary to address her loneliness. The teacher, probably questioning every life choice that led them to this moment, reluctantly ignores the situation. When they return home, Nagisa tells Saki that she wishes someone would hug her the way Naoya hugs Saki. Hearing this, Naoya immediately offers to hug Nagisa, but she refuses. Nagisa explains that she doesn't want to upset Saki or make her feel hurt. Saki, showing surprising generosity, or just wanting to avoid more awkwardness, tells Nagisa that she doesn't mind. Saki even tries to leave the room to give them privacy. However, Naoya stops her, stating that he knows she will feel anxious if they hug while she isn't watching. Seki reluctantly stays but decides to watch from another room, peeking through the doorway. To her surprise, seeing Naoya hug Nagisa makes her feel excited in a way she doesn't fully understand. Feeling embarrassed by her reaction, Saki questions her own feelings and wonders why she has such strange thoughts. Despite her discomfort, she can't stop herself from watching. The situation takes an unexpected turn when Nagisa accidentally falls to the ground and Naoya lunges toward her to help. From Saki's perspective, it looks far more suggestive than it actually is, and she immediately storms in to stop Naoya, convinced that something inappropriate is about to happen. The next day, Rika continues her relentless pursuit of Naoya, following him all the way back home. When she tries to enter the house, Saki steps in to block her, determined to keep Rika out. Naoya, ever the overthinker, starts theorizing about Rika's behavior. He concludes that she must be attracted to him, which leaves Saki and Nagisa visibly nervous. Saki quietly murmurs to Nagisa that if Naoya figures out Rika's true feelings, it is very likely that he will start dating her as well. This thought terrifies them both. Seki suggests they need to come up with a plan to trick Naoya, so that he doesn't realize how Rika feels about him. Saki tells Naoya that Rika is definitely not in love with him. She tries to downplay everything by pointing out that Naoya is just a normal person and is already lucky to have both her and Nagisa as his girlfriends. Naoya, still unconvinced, asks why Rika blushes every time she talks to him. Saki, clearly grasping for an explanation, declares that Rika is in heat and would be willing to do it with any boy. Naoya, in his usual clueless fashion, admits that he didn't know girls could go into heat. He then asks Saki and Nagisa if they have ever felt this way. Saki, trying to avoid further embarrassment, jokes that jealousy is stronger in girls with bigger chests. She adds that she has no problems with jealousy because her chest is small. Naoya, taking everything at face value, turns to Nagisa and tells her to let him know if she ever feels this way so he can do his best to help her. Nagisa, caught off guard, thanks him but is clearly unsure of how to respond. Later, during school, Rika approaches Naoya. He takes the opportunity to apologize to her. He admits that he thought Rika was in love with him, which leaves Rika flustered and embarrassed. She quickly pulls him aside to talk in private. However, Saki and Nagisa, suspicious of Rika's intentions, decide to follow them. Once they are alone, Rika asks Naoya how he figured out that she is in love with him. Naoya, confused by her directness, apologizes again and explains that he thought she liked him, but Saki told him the truth. Rika, even more confused, doesn't understand what he means and turns to Saki for clarification. Saki, realizing she has trapped herself, refuses to answer and avoids eye contact. Naoya confidently tells Rika that he has figured it all out. He claims that Rika is simply in heat and willing to have sex with anyone. Rika, visibly offended, calls him stupid for believing such ridiculous nonsense. Naoya, confused as always, asks her why she blushes every time she's near him. His theory isn't true. Rika quickly claims that she has a cold, but her obvious embarrassment makes Naoya skeptical. Saki whispers to Naoya that Rika is probably too embarrassed to admit that she is, in fact, in heat. Naoya, deciding to avoid further awkwardness, pretends to believe Rika's excuse about having a cold. However, in typical Naoya fashion, he overcomplicates things by deciding to help her. He declares his intention to find her a boyfriend so she can satisfy her needs. This statement pushes Rika over the edge and she immediately hits him. She then asks him what he would do if she were actually in love with him. Naoya, ever direct, says he would reject her without hesitation. Frustrated by his response, Rika abruptly tells him to go to class, hiding her growing feelings under a mask of annoyance. And as she walks away, Rika reflects on her situation. She realizes that she doesn't have any clear way to make Naoya fall for her. Despite this, her determination strengthens and she resolves to do everything in her power to win over. Meanwhile, Saki celebrates what she thinks is their newfound freedom from Rika. She declares that they are finally rid of her persistent interference. However, her relief is short-lived. Rika appears almost immediately, boldly revealing that she does like Naoya. Naoya, in his usual clueless way, doesn't believe her. Rika, undeterred, repeats her confession and grabs his arm, leading him away. Nagisa and Saki, unable to ignore the situation, follow them closely. Rika openly admits that ever since Naoya defended her from her father, she has found him attractive. Naoya, in his usual dismissive and clueless way, brushes off her compliment, insisting that anyone would have done the same thing. He then tells her to give up on him, explaining that he is fully committed to making Nagisa and Saki happy. In an attempt to redirect her feelings, he once again offers to help her find a boyfriend. Rika, not backing down, declares that she only loves Naoya. She reveals that she is always thinking about him and feels jealous when she sees him having fun with Saki and Nagisa. Frustrated, she suddenly kisses Naoya, leaving him stunned. She confidently tells him that now he will not be able to stop thinking about her, just as she can't stop thinking about him. Before leaving, Rika throws down an ultimatum. If he wants her to be his girlfriend, he will have to break up with Nagisa and Saki. Unfortunately for Naoya, Shino Kiryu overhears this dramatic exchange. Shino is the best friend of Saki and classmate. She comes from a rich family and is at the top of their class academically. Shino jumps to the conclusion that Naoya is cheating on Saki, setting the stage for more chaos. Later, Saki and Nagisa express their disappointment and sadness over the situation, focusing on the fact that Rika kissed Naoya before either of them had the chance. Naoya, eager to fix things, offers to kiss them both to make up for it. However, Saki and Nagisa reject his idea. They accuse him of just wanting to cover up the fact that Rika kissed him. Saki then shares her thoughts on how a first kiss should be. She insists that it should happen in a romantic and memorable setting, not in a sudden and awkward way like Rika's kiss. Naoya, wanting to mend their relationship, suggests that they should spend more time together to strengthen their bond. They all agree to go on a date, realizing that despite being in a relationship, they haven't gone on a proper outing since they started dating. Saki enthusiastically proposes a trip to a hot spring after school, which everyone agrees to. Saki then tells Naoya to go shopping to prepare for the trip. Just as Naoya gets ready to leave, Shino approaches him and asks to talk. However, Saki steps in and tells Shino to wait until after they finish shopping at the mall. Saki tells Nagisa that the main goal of their trip is for everyone to have a good time together. However, Saki secretly plans to use the opportunity to kiss Naoya. Meanwhile, Rika, ever the meddler, decides to follow them to find out what they are up to. Nagisa, reflecting on the trip, realizes that it might be her chance to grow closer to Naoya. The idea of kissing him crosses her mind and she decides to buy some mints to prepare. At the same time, Saki also grabs a package of mints. The two notice each other's actions and immediately realize they both have the same goal. Saki, instead of hiding her intentions, tells Nagisa not to feel embarrassed. She admits that, as Naoya's girlfriend, Nagisa has every right to think about kissing him. Saki then confesses that she also plans to kiss Naoya, even though she previously said nothing would happen on the trip. Nagisa, showing her supportive side, acknowledges that Saki is Naoya's first girlfriend. She points out that if she kisses him first, Naoya might feel awkward about Saki. Nagisa offers to help Saki create the perfect moment during the trip to make her plan work. Determined to prepare, they shop for clothes. Nagisa picks out some suggestive outfits for Saki, hoping to help her stand out. Saki, unimpressed, comments that Nagisa has no sense of fashion. Their playful bickering only highlights how different their approaches are. Meanwhile, Rika keeps a close eye on them, observing their plans for the hot springs trip. On the day of the trip, Naoya, being overly idealistic, takes both Saki and Nagisa by the hand. He openly holds their hands, stating that they shouldn't have to hide their relationship while they are there. When they arrive at the inn, they are surprised to find Rika waiting for them. Her determination to interfere clearly knows no bounds. Not long after, Shino also appears. She directly confronts Naoya, asking if he is in a relationship with both Nagisa and Saki at the same time. Before Naoya can respond, Nagisa steps in, claiming that she came with Rika and that they only ran into Naoya and Saki by coincidence. Rika, caught off guard, tries to deny it, but Nagisa, showing her crafty side, blackmails her by threatening to reveal her streaming channel. Cornered, Rika reluctantly goes along with Nagisa's story. When they reach their room, Naoya and Saki notice Nagisa is missing. She sends a message to Naoya, explaining that they can't afford to be seen together with Shino around. She urges them to have fun without her, but Naoya stubbornly refuses to accept that idea. Later, while Rika and Nagisa are taking a bath, Naoya shows up unannounced. He tells Nagisa that he joined the trip to spend time with both her and Saki, so he won't let her isolate herself. However, Nagisa, embarrassed because she's only wearing a towel, panics and runs away, leaving Naoya alone with Rika. Seizing the opportunity, Rika tries to seduce Naoya. She boldly asks him what he thought of their kiss, hoping to hear something encouraging. Details about their lives, Rika, while running across the roof, he slips and falls, landing near Shino, who is about to take a bath. Shino, startled by his sudden appearance, immediately assumes Naoya is a degenerate. It could lead to serious problems. Shino continues to press Naoya, pointing out the flaws of such a relationship. She repeatedly asks him if he's dating anyone else, but Naoya refuses. Unfortunately for him, Shino grabs him to stop him, which causes him to stop. She has always worked hard just to be average, but constant failure makes it difficult for her to stay motivated. Nagisa explains that she struggled with finding something she could excel at and often felt disappointed met Naoya. Nagisa recalls Naoya persistently proposing to Saki for months, starting in primary school. At first, in the bathroom, he confronts them, addressing what he heard. He praises Nagisa for never giving up, even though she feels like she is bad at everything. Realizing that Naoya knows about her feelings, Nagisa becomes overwhelmed with embarrassment and runs away. Naoya and Saki chase after her, determined not to let her. Naoya shouts to Nagisa that she doesn't need to take a step back in their relationship. Nagisa, however, insists just how complicated their relationship has become. Nagisa, gathering her courage, admits that she does want to be Naoya's number one someday. However, she says she is content with her current role for now. Naoya manages to catch up with Nagisa, stopping her in her tracks. He emphasizes that if either of them is ever forced to take a step back in their relationship, it would mean he has failed his promise to make them both happy. His determination is an explanation for the situation, unable to wrap her head around the strange dynamics. Naoya, in his usual blunt and overly honest manner, explains that after starting his relationship with Saki, he also fell in love with Nagisa. He proposed the idea of a three-way relationship and both girls accepted. Naoya admits that he is fully aware of how complicated and challenging this type of relationship can be. He even mentions that he is willing to explain the arrangement to Saki's mother to be completely transparent. However, Saki, horrified by the idea of her mother finding out, immediately refuses and cancels any such plan. Just as the group disperses, Shino finds herself reflecting on her own feelings. She realizes that she also likes Naoya, but she feels helpless about the situation. Knowing that Naoya is her best friend's boyfriend, Shino declares she cannot act on her emotions. She decides to somehow split them up for the sake of her best friend and to get over her secret feelings for Naoya. However, later she becomes furious when she learns that Rika also loves Naoya. She confronts Naoya, accusing him of being a three-timer. Naoya, ever the pedantic truth-teller, calmly corrects her, insisting that he is only two-timing, not three-timing. This technicality does nothing to calm Shino, who finds his explanation just as unacceptable as his behavior. And that is it for today. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to like the video and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more updates and hilarious breakdowns of same kinda anime.